The summer heat wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, stifling and unyielding. I stood on the creaky porch of our old Victorian house, staring out at the empty street. The cicadas sang their relentless song, a reminder of the oppressive Georgia summer that seemed to stretch endlessly. My husband, David, was away at war, and the silence of our home felt like an echo of his absence. I missed him terribly, yet there was a void within me that his letters could not fill. David's deployment had been long and arduous. Each day blurred into the next, marked only by the arrival of his letters. They brought news from afar but also a growing sense of unease. In one letter, he expressed worries about our relationship, about how distance might change us. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it away as if hiding my own fears along with it. The truth was that I felt more alone than ever in this house filled with memories. As I turned to head inside, my gaze caught on a familiar figure walking down the street. Matthew, my husband's half-brother, approached with an easy stride and a smile that felt like a spark in my otherwise dull world. He had always been there in the background, an occasional visitor during family gatherings, but now he seemed to stand out against the backdrop of my solitude. "Hey there," he called out, tipping his hat slightly as he reached the porch. "Hi, Matthew," I replied, forcing a smile despite the turmoil inside me. He stepped closer, leaning against the porch railing. "You doing all right? It's been a while since we've seen each other." "Just trying to keep busy," I said lightly, though my heart raced at his proximity. "You know how it is." Matthew nodded knowingly, his gaze lingering on me longer than necessary. There was something in those eyes, a warmth mixed with understanding, that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't for months. "Why don't you come to the festival tonight?" he suggested suddenly. "It might do you some good to get out." The local festival was bustling with life, and music playing from every corner and laughter ringing through the air like sweet tea on a hot day. A part of me wanted to decline. Staying home felt safer amidst my swirling thoughts and guilt over David's absence. But another part craved connection and distraction from this isolation that had settled over me like dust in an unused room. "I suppose it could be fun," I conceded. As we walked together through the festival grounds later that evening, surrounded by families enjoying cotton candy and children running wild with joy, I couldn't help but feel an odd sense of comfort beside Matthew. He talked animatedly about local bands and food stalls while I nodded along, though my mind wandered at times to thoughts of David, his laugh during family dinners, or how he used to tease me about my terrible dancing skills. Then came a moment where everything shifted, the kind where time seems to slow down just for you two amidst all the noise around you. We found ourselves near a small stage where local musicians played soulful tunes under string lights that twinkled like stars above us. Matthew turned to face me directly as he spoke about his plans for the future, a dream he had always harbored but never pursued fully due to family obligations. His passion ignited something within me. It reminded me of dreams lost somewhere between duty and expectation. "I think you'd love it if you tried," he said earnestly. Our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity, an unspoken understanding passing between us that transcended words. The air thickened with tension. For just a moment, it felt as if we were alone in this crowded place filled with laughter and life. But then reality crashed back in as laughter erupted from nearby revelers, pulling us back into their world. My heart raced as Matthew broke eye contact first and looked away towards the crowd. "Let's grab something to eat," he suggested casually as if nothing had happened between us. I nodded but couldn't shake off the feeling that something had shifted irreversibly within me, a longing awakened beneath layers of guilt and isolation that had built up over months apart from David. As we moved through the festival stalls together, sipping lemonade and sampling fried dough, I found myself laughing more than I had in ages. It felt good, too good almost considering who was waiting for me back home. Later that night when we finally parted ways outside my house beneath a canopy of stars flickering overhead, an uncomfortable silence hung between us before Matthew spoke again softly, Take care of yourself while David is away." I managed a weak smile before stepping back toward my front door, but not before our eyes met once more, this time lingering even longer than before, as if both knowing we were crossing into dangerous territory without saying so aloud. Once inside my empty house again, the silence crashing down around me, I leaned against the door trying to catch my breath. Everything felt heavier now, emotions swirling within me like storm clouds gathering on the horizon, threatening rain after weeks of drought. In those quiet moments after Matthew left, reality hit hard. Loneliness gnawed at my insides while desire danced dangerously close alongside guilt. A cocktail too potent for any one person alone should bear without consequence, looming overhead like dark shadows stretching across sunlit fields just beyond reach. The storm raged outside, its fury matching the turmoil within me. Rain poured in torrents against the windows, a relentless percussion that filled the silence of my home. I stood still for a moment, trying to gather my thoughts, but they slipped away like water through my fingers. The darkness of the evening had settled in, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket, stifling and oppressive. Matthew's presence lingered in every corner of the room. The way he smiled, the way his laughter echoed in my ears, it was all too vivid. I had never imagined that sharing dreams and regrets could feel so intimate. Yet here I was, feeling both exhilarated and terrified by what had transpired between us. As I moved through the house, I felt drawn to the living room where we had shared our secrets just hours ago. Memories of our conversation replayed in my mind, how we spoke of childhood dreams and lost opportunities, how we found common ground in our loneliness. It was as if we were two ships passing through a foggy night, seeking solace in one another. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. My heart raced as I recalled how close we had been, how our hands brushed together as we reached for the same mug of coffee. The warmth of his skin against mine felt electric, igniting something deep within me that I struggled to comprehend. I sank into an old armchair, its fabric worn yet comforting. The storm outside rumbled like an angry beast. It mirrored my own inner conflict, the guilt gnawing at me for even considering this connection with Matthew while my husband fought miles away. With each clap of thunder, memories flooded back, evenings spent waiting for phone calls from my husband, days filled with silence and longing. Now those very moments felt tainted by what had transpired with Matthew. How could I allow myself to feel this way? How could I betray someone who was risking everything? I picked up a framed photo from the side table, a snapshot of happier times with my husband at a family gathering years ago. His smile was infectious, he looked so full of life then. But time and distance had changed everything. Now it felt like we were strangers drifting apart in different worlds. Just then, there was a knock at the door, a sound that jolted me from my reverie. My heart raced again as I wondered if it could be Matthew returning or perhaps someone else entirely. Hesitating for a moment, I finally rose to answer it. Opening the door revealed not Matthew but Mrs. Henderson from next door, a sweet elderly woman with kind eyes who often checked on me during these lonely days. "Caroline. Are you all right? It's quite a storm out there," she exclaimed with concern etched across her face. "Just fine," I replied too quickly, forcing a smile despite the turmoil inside me. Mrs. Henderson peered past me into the house as if searching for signs of distress. "You've been awfully quiet lately," she said gently. "Is everything okay with your husband?" "Yes," I lied smoothly, even though guilt clawed at my insides again like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. "Well then," she said slowly, "if you need anything or just want some company." "Thank you," I interrupted softly but firmly. Her kindness only served to intensify my feelings of isolation. After exchanging pleasantries and assuring her that all was well, she finally left me alone again with my thoughts that now swirled dangerously close to despair as guilt continued to tighten its grip around my heart. As night deepened outside and rain continued to fall in sheets against the window panes, the world outside blurred into an indistinct haze. I found myself wandering back toward where Matthew had sat earlier on the couch across from mine. The air felt charged with unspoken words. Memories hung thick between us like fog settling over fields at dawn, tangible yet elusive at once. What if he were here right now? What would he say? Would he understand this turmoil? Would he feel guilty too? Or would he embrace it, a chance at something more than what life had dealt us? The thought made me shiver despite myself. Desire flickered within me once more like an ember waiting for wind to ignite it fully. Then came another flash of lightning followed by thunder so loud it rattled windows throughout the house, a reminder that nature's fury mirrored my own chaotic emotions swirling beneath surfaces barely held together by threads fraying at their edges. Suddenly overwhelmed by uncertainty, by longing mixed with fear, I turned toward where I'd left my phone charging on the kitchen counter earlier that evening. My connection to reality seemed so distant now. Without it there would be no reminders or distractions from what lay ahead or behind. But when I reached for it and realized it wasn't there, I froze completely still, my heart pounding wildly as panic set in. Severed from any ties connecting me back outside these walls made this moment feel even more isolating than before. What if Matthew returned? What would happen then? Would we talk about what transpired earlier, or would silence reign supreme once more? The storm raged on outside while inside all remained tense, the air thickening with unvoiced emotions swirling around us both like leaves caught in an autumn gust desperate for release. And just then came another knock, this time louder than before, as if demanding entry into this chaotic world where decisions loomed heavy overhead casting long shadows across sunlit fields just beyond reach. The storm continued to rage outside, a relentless reminder of the turmoil brewing within me. The air was thick with unspoken words, each moment stretching into eternity as I tried to process what had just happened. Matthew's presence felt both comforting and dangerous, a paradox that left me feeling breathless. "Caroline," he said softly, breaking the silence that hung between us like a heavy curtain. "Are you okay?" I nodded, though my heart raced with uncertainty. "Just thinking." My voice barely rose above a whisper, but it felt like a confession. "About what?" He stepped closer, concern etched across his features. The warmth radiating from him was both inviting and alarming. "Everything," I replied, glancing toward the window where rain lashed against the glass. "About us. About your brother." The mention of my husband sent a fresh wave of guilt crashing over me. Matthew sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I get it, Caroline. This is complicated for both of us." His gaze pierced through the veil of my thoughts, forcing me to confront the reality of our situation. As we stood there in the dim light of the living room, I felt an overwhelming sense of isolation from the world outside. My husband's absence loomed large in my mind, his voice echoing in my ears from his last letter, laden with worries about our relationship and his longing for home. "I miss him," I admitted quietly, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I know," Matthew replied gently. "But that doesn't change how I feel." His words hung in the air between us like an uninvited guest. The tension shifted palpably. It felt as if we were teetering on the edge of something monumental and irrevocable. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, an intrusion into our fragile moment. I hesitated before reaching for it, half dreading what I might find on the screen. The message was from my husband. "Hey love, just checking in. Hope you're holding up okay." A pang shot through me as I glanced at Matthew's expectant face, his expression shifting from concern to something more intense, a longing mirrored in his eyes that made my heart race anew. "How do you respond to that?" Matthew asked quietly, nodding toward my phone. I hesitated again before typing back a simple reply, "I'm fine." It felt insufficient and hollow against the weight of everything unsaid between us. Matthew stepped back slightly as if creating space would help ease the tension building between us once more. But instead of creating distance, it only amplified what lingered beneath the surface, the desire bubbling just out of reach. "I don't want to complicate things further," he said finally, his voice low and strained. "Then why does it feel like we're already tangled?" I shot back before I could stop myself. "Why does this feel so right yet so wrong?" He took a deep breath as if gathering courage before answering. "Because we're both lonely." His honesty struck me like lightning. It illuminated our shared vulnerability amidst this chaos. Our eyes locked again, a magnetic force pulling us closer despite all reason urging otherwise. And then it happened. Our lips met in that moment of vulnerability, a fleeting connection that held promises and fears alike within its grasp. For those few seconds, nothing else existed beyond that kiss. Not my husband's absence nor Matthew's role as his half-brother mattered anymore. But reality rushed back like a cold wave crashing against warm sand when we pulled away from each other abruptly, breathless and bewildered by what had just transpired between us. "Caroline," Matthew began but faltered as he searched for words that might bridge this chasm opening wider beneath our feet. Before he could continue, another buzz interrupted us, my phone again lighting up with another message from my husband, "Miss you." The simplicity of those two words struck deep within me. It was a reminder not only of his love but also of my betrayal hanging heavily in the air around us now. I stammered awkwardly as embarrassment flooded through me like ice water on bare skin. "Yeah," Matthew replied quietly without looking at me directly anymore. There was an understanding now, a shared burden weighing down upon both our shoulders even as we stood apart physically. "I'm sorry," I whispered finally. It felt inadequate yet necessary all at once given everything swirling around us. The guilt festering inside like an open wound refusing to heal despite time passing by relentlessly outside these walls. "Don't be," he murmured softly but firmly while turning away slightly, as if retreating would somehow lessen this ache we both carried silently together now amidst shadows cast long across sunlit fields beyond reach once more. The storm began to subside outside. Raindrops reduced to gentle patters against glass while flashes occasionally lit up darkened corners revealing truths hidden away until now. Yet even with clarity emerging slowly amid chaos surrounding us still, I couldn't shake off feelings lingering behind every word exchanged tonight, each glance filled with longing unfulfilled echoing louder than any thunder rumbling overhead. As I turned back toward him one last time before retreating into solitude once more, I caught sight of something glimmering faintly on his wrist. It was an old bracelet belonging to our childhood days spent together long ago. In its presence lay memories too precious yet tainted by choices made since then. But before either could speak again or delve deeper into those memories intertwined forever now, I heard footsteps approaching outside, the unmistakable sound signaling someone drawing nearer. And just like that, I felt trapped between two worlds colliding, a life filled with expectations versus one riddled with desires unfulfilled. Caught within shadows stretching out endlessly ahead, where choices made would lead only further down paths unforeseen until now. The morning light crept through the curtains, casting a soft glow in the room. I blinked awake, disoriented for a moment. The bed felt strange without Matthew beside me. The warmth of his presence lingered in the sheets, but he was gone, leaving behind an emptiness that echoed louder than the silence of the house. I sat up, my heart racing as I struggled to piece together the events of last night. We spent the night together, sharing stories and dreams that felt both comforting and dangerous. The laughter and shared memories had woven a fragile bond between us, one that now felt like a thread ready to snap under pressure. The weight of guilt settled heavily on my chest. I glanced at my phone on the bedside table, its screen dark and uninviting. My husband was miles away, fighting a war that seemed to extend beyond physical battles. Each day stretched into an eternity without him, yet here I was, entangled in a web of deceit with his half-brother. I slipped out of bed and padded quietly to the kitchen, hoping to find some solace in the routine of making coffee. As I waited for the kettle to boil, memories flooded back, Matthew's laughter, the way his eyes sparkled when he spoke about our childhood adventures. It was easy to forget about my marriage when I was with him. A soft knock at the door startled me from my reverie. My heart raced as I approached cautiously. It could be anyone, an old neighbor or perhaps even Matthew returning unexpectedly. I opened it slowly, revealing Mrs. Thompson from next door, her expression curious yet friendly. "Good morning, dear. Just wanted to check on you," she said cheerfully, her southern drawl wrapping around each word like honey. "Morning," I replied cautiously, stepping aside to let her in. "I noticed your car hasn't moved much lately. Everything all right?" She peered at me with concern etched across her features. "Just keeping busy," I managed to say, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than genuine warmth. Mrs. Thompson nodded knowingly but didn't press further. We exchanged small talk about the weather and local gossip while my mind wandered back to Matthew and what we had shared last night, an unspoken promise wrapped in uncertainty. After she left, I leaned against the kitchen counter, staring blankly at my untouched coffee cup. The guilt gnawed at me relentlessly. It was one thing to feel lonely but another entirely to betray my husband's trust while he fought for our country. Later that afternoon, Matthew texted me, "Hope you're okay." My heart fluttered at his words, a mixture of excitement and dread coursing through me as I contemplated how best to respond without revealing too much. "I'm fine," I typed back hesitantly before adding a smiley face emoji, a feeble attempt to mask my turmoil behind a veil of normalcy. As days passed without any significant change in our circumstances, my husband still deployed and Matthew still present, I found myself slipping deeper into this complicated emotional labyrinth we had created together. Each stolen moment with Matthew felt like both an escape and a prison sentence. Every laugh shared only deepened my internal conflict. One evening after dinner, my stomach knotted with unease. I found myself sitting on the porch steps lost in thought when Matthew appeared unexpectedly at the end of our driveway. "Hey," he called softly as he approached me. "Hey," I replied quietly, trying not to let my emotions spill over into words that could shatter everything we had built up until now. He sat down beside me on the steps, our shoulders brushed against each other, a simple touch that sent shivers down my spine despite its innocence. "You've been quiet lately." "I'm just thinking," I said evasively while watching fireflies flicker against the darkening sky. "About us?" he asked gently but pointedly. I turned towards him sharply, words hung heavy between us like unspoken fears threatening to break free. "Matthew." He interrupted softly yet firmly, "Caroline, we can't keep pretending this is just friendship." I swallowed hard, his gaze pierced through layers of doubt clouding my judgment. "What do you want from me?" "To be real." His voice trembled slightly as if admitting this truth could unravel everything, yet it only drew us closer together within this fragile moment suspended outside time itself. The tension hung thick around us until finally breaking when he reached out and took my hand into his own, a simple gesture laden with meaning far beyond its surface simplicity. "I don't want you to feel alone anymore," he whispered earnestly as if confessing something sacred between two souls lost amidst chaos surrounding them both. The world outside fading away until only we remained bound by our shared secrets swirling around us like leaves caught in autumn windstorms swirling wildly overhead above our heads. That night felt different. It held promises unspoken yet palpable enough for both of us not only recognize but embrace wholeheartedly despite knowing full well what lay ahead would challenge everything we believed ourselves capable of enduring together, or apart. But when dawn broke again, its light filtering through cracks around window panes, I awoke alone once more with nothing left but echoes from last night's revelations lingering faintly within walls echoing solitude once again. The phone buzzed beside me, another message from him awaited. "Can we talk later?" "Need you." My heart sank at those words. They carried weight beyond mere requests. They hinted towards deeper connections yearning for acknowledgement yet cloaked beneath layers built up over years spent navigating complexities surrounding love intertwined alongside loyalty. And then came another twist. Just as I contemplated how best to respond back, a familiar name flashed across my screen, the name belonging solely unto him. The man who fought bravely miles away yet remained oblivious toward shadows creeping ever closer, threatening everything dear held tightly within grasp. Caroline? My husband's voice echoed through speakerphone moments later, filled with warmth laced alongside worry, tinged lightly beneath surface calmness, masking underlying tension brewing steadily beneath. What's wrong? My voice trembled slightly despite efforts made attempting maintain composure intact amid rising storm brewing inside where desire clashed fiercely against duty demanding attention. I miss you. He paused briefly before continuing further, still uncertain where conversation might lead next, the distance stretching endlessly between us both now heavier than ever before, weighing down upon shoulders already burdened far too long already. As his words washed over me, a wave crashing violently upon shores once tranquil, I knew then choices made would ripple outward, forever altering paths ahead forevermore. The days dragged on, each one blending into the next like the fading colors of summer. The oppressive heat weighed heavily on my mind, and the absence of my husband felt like a gaping wound that refused to heal. I spent countless hours staring out of the window, watching the world outside continue with its rhythm, while I remained suspended in a state of uncertainty. Matthew's presence lingered in my thoughts, a shadow that refused to dissipate. I had tried to convince myself that distancing would ease the turmoil within me. But every time I saw him, it was as if a current surged between us, drawing me closer against my better judgment. The guilt was suffocating, it gnawed at my conscience relentlessly. One afternoon, while tending to the garden, an old neighbor strolled by, Mrs. Henderson, a woman known for her keen eye and sharper tongue. She paused at the gate, her gaze lingering on me with an unsettling intensity. "Caroline dear," she said with a hint of concern. "You seem different these days. Everything all right?" I forced a smile, but inside I felt exposed. "Just keeping busy," I replied, hoping to deflect her scrutiny. Her brow furrowed slightly as if she sensed something beneath my words. "You know I'm always here if you need to talk." As she walked away, I felt a shiver run down my spine. What if she suspected? What if someone else noticed the changes in me? The thought sent waves of anxiety crashing over me. Later that evening, I received an unexpected phone call from my husband's commanding officer. My heart raced as I answered. "Mrs. Thompson," he began in his clipped tone, "I wanted to inform you about potential changes in your husband's deployment schedule." My stomach dropped as he continued explaining that there was talk of an extension, a possibility that he might not be home for months longer than anticipated. "Is there anything you need from us?" he asked. "No," I managed to reply, even though everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. After hanging up, dread settled in my chest like a stone. The weight of Matthew's presence felt heavier now that I knew my husband would remain away longer than expected. How could I navigate this situation without losing everything? The next few days passed in a blur of routine chores and restless nights filled with doubt and longing for clarity. Despite my attempts to keep things normal, each interaction with Matthew only intensified the confusion within me. We met at the local diner one afternoon under the guise of grabbing coffee together, a harmless outing that quickly morphed into something more complicated. "Caroline," Matthew said softly as we sat across from each other in a booth tucked away from prying eyes. "I can't stop thinking about you." His admission sent heat rushing through me despite knowing how wrong this all was. "Matthew," my voice faltered as the weight of our reality pressed down upon us both. "I don't want to hide anymore," he continued earnestly, his eyes searching mine for understanding. My heart raced at his words. They echoed what had been festering inside me for weeks now, the desire for connection amidst the sea of loneliness. But before I could respond fully, an older couple entered the diner and took a seat nearby, their laughter cutting through our moment like glass shattering against tile. Reality crashed back down around us. we were not alone in this tangled web we had woven together. I should go, I said abruptly, standing up and leaving some bills on the table before walking out into the sweltering heat outside. The air felt thick around me as I walked home, each step heavy with regret and longing intertwined like vines choking a once beautiful tree. That evening brought little relief. Sleep eluded me once again as thoughts spiraled through my mind like leaves caught in a storm wind. Just when exhaustion began pulling at my eyelids, there was a knock at the door, soft yet insistent enough to pull me back into reality. I opened it cautiously to find Matthew standing there under the dim porch light, his expression unreadable yet intense. "What are you doing here?" My voice barely masked surprise and apprehension mingled together. "I needed to see you," he replied simply as if it were justification enough for crossing boundaries we had both acknowledged but never fully confronted until now. His presence filled the space between us with unspoken words hanging heavy in the air, a tension that had become familiar yet dangerous all at once. "Matthew," my voice trailed off uncertainly as emotions swirled within me, a cocktail of desire and fear battling for dominance over rational thought. He stepped closer, his gaze unwavering as he searched for answers behind walls built high over months spent hiding from ourselves, the truth threatening to spill over any moment now like an overflowing cup brimming past its limits. And then it happened again. Our lips met unexpectedly, a collision igniting sparks where guilt once reigned supreme, but just as quickly pulled apart by reality crashing back down around us both again too soon after tasting what could be. "Caroline." A voice called out suddenly from behind him. My heart sank further than before recognizing it belonged to Mrs. Henderson returning home just down the street after her evening errands ended earlier than expected this time around. Caught off guard by her presence looming behind him made everything feel even more precarious than moments before, an unwelcome reminder that lives intertwined could lead somewhere neither one intended or anticipated. "I should go," Matthew said hastily stepping back while glancing towards Mrs. Henderson who stood observing quietly now, her eyes narrowing slightly with suspicion etched across her features revealing perhaps more than she let on. As he turned away toward his car parked further down our quiet street, I stood frozen watching him leave feeling torn between wanting him near yet fearing consequences lurking just beyond sight waiting patiently. What would happen next? Would anyone find out? Would this shadow cast over our lives ever lift? Questions swirled relentlessly within me leaving no room for clarity amid chaos threatening everything familiar, forcing choices ahead steeped deeper still within shadows longing desperately seeking light. The days dragged on, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Each morning, I woke to the same sun filtering through the curtains, a reminder of the life outside that continued without me. The heat hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating and relentless. I tried to push thoughts of Matthew away, but they clung to me like shadows, refusing to let go. I busied myself with chores around the house, but every creak of the floorboards seemed to echo with memories of our stolen moments. The forgotten piece of jewelry, a delicate silver bracelet, lay on my dresser like a ghost from another life. It was a gift from Matthew, a token of our connection that felt both beautiful and burdensome. I picked it up, tracing its curves with my fingers, feeling a pang of longing mixed with guilt. As I moved through my routine, I found myself avoiding places where Matthew might appear. The local cafe became an off-limits zone, and I steered clear of the park where we had shared laughter and secrets. But isolation only intensified my feelings. Loneliness wrapped around me tighter than any embrace. One evening, as dusk settled over our small town, I received an unexpected knock at the door. My heart raced as I opened it to find Matthew standing there, his expression a mix of concern and desperation. "Caroline," he breathed out softly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Matthew," I replied cautiously, closing the door behind him. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you," he said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I couldn't just stay away." The tension crackled between us like static electricity. You shouldn't have come, I whispered, knowing full well how dangerous this was. I can't help it, he insisted. Every moment without you feels unbearable. He stepped closer, and for a moment we stood in silence, each lost in our thoughts, caught in the web we had woven together. Then he spoke again, his voice low and earnest. I need clarity about us. Clarity? The word hung heavily between us. How could we find clarity when everything was shrouded in confusion? Yes, he said firmly. We need to talk about what happened between us. My heart raced at his words. Part of me wanted to flee while another part craved this confrontation. We had danced around our feelings for too long now. Matthew, I began but hesitated as emotions surged within me. Please. He took another step forward. Desperation etched across his face made me ache for him even more. We've crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed, I finally managed to say. What about my husband? What about everything? He looked down for a moment before meeting my gaze again with intensity. I can't pretend anymore that what we have doesn't mean something. The air grew thick with unspoken words as we stood there, two souls caught in a storm neither could control nor escape from easily. Suddenly overwhelmed by memories flooding back, the laughter shared over cups of coffee and quiet conversations under starlit skies, I took a step back from him as if physically distancing myself could somehow quell these feelings raging inside me. Matthew, my voice trembled as reality settled upon us once more. It felt impossible to ignore what lay ahead. I know this is complicated, he said softly yet firmly as if trying to anchor himself amidst chaos swirling around us both. I'm not sure where this leads. My heart sank under the weight of truth. Every word felt like another nail sealing shut any chance at resolution or peace. We need each other right now. His eyes bore into mine, filled with longing and sincerity that made it hard not to want him closer despite knowing better than allowing desire cloud judgment again. A sudden realization struck me. How could we navigate this tangled web without consequences? The thought sent shivers down my spine as fear gripped tightly around my heart. Before either one could articulate further feelings or fears lingering between us, before rationality returned, I reached out instinctively toward him. Our fingers brushed lightly against one another's skin, a simple touch igniting flames long buried beneath layers of guilt and longing alike. But just then something shifted within me, a wave crashing against all reason, reminding me why this was wrong even if every fiber in my being yearned for connection beyond mere conversation or comfort shared amidst chaos swirling outside those walls enclosing us both tightly together still. As if sensing my internal struggle, Matthew stepped back slightly, his expression shifting from longing into confusion laced heavily with disappointment reflected plainly across his features now caught between two worlds torn apart by choices made before either knew what they truly wanted out life itself. I should go. His voice broke through silence filling void left behind moments earlier filled only by unspoken desires yearning desperately seeking release from turmoil gripping tightly around hearts intertwined yet so far apart still. No. My voice came out sharper than intended but unable to mask urgency rising within me, the need for clarity battling against instinct urging caution instead. He paused mid-step turning back toward me searching deeply into eyes filled not merely with regret but also hope lingering just beneath surface waiting patiently for opportunity arise once more allowing light shine upon darkness threatening engulf everything whole. What do you want? His question hung heavily in air-thickening atmosphere surrounding us both now charged electric currents pulsing alive sparking possibilities previously unknown yet undeniably real too. I don't know. Came out breathlessly escaping lips parted slightly trembling under pressure building steadily pushing boundaries already blurred beyond recognition leaving nothing untouched anymore either way leading down paths uncharted ahead filled uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts yearning desperately seeking solace finally found despite fears clinging tight unwilling release grasp tightening stronger still. Just then, a sudden wave washed over me. a realization crashing down hard against fragile facade built carefully over years spent pretending everything fine while hiding truths hidden beneath surface waiting patiently emerge finally breaking free revealing raw vulnerability exposed bare open wide. Inviting scrutiny judgment alike forcing choices confront head-on instead retreating backward into darkness once more where comfort lay though fleetingly slipping away faster than light. Illuminating distant horizon beckoning forth brighter futures awaiting discovery ahead. And then it hit me, the reality wrapped tightly around existence itself binding tightly together lives intertwined forever altered irrevocably changed by decisions made a long way leading nowhere good only leaving behind wreckage broken dreams shattered hopes lost forevermore amid shadows lingering just beyond reach beckoning forth brighter futures awaiting discovery ahead. I staggered backward slightly catching breath steadying myself against wall nearby feeling dizzy overwhelmed entirely unable comprehend magnitude choices unfolding right before very eyes. In that moment, a shift occurred deep inside stirring awake dormant desires long buried beneath layers guilt shame regret. All colliding head-on creating chaos spiraling outward threatening consume everything known until nothing remained untouched anymore either way leading down paths uncharted ahead filled uncertainty looming large overhead casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within. Hearts yearning desperately seeking solace finally found despite fears clinging tight unwilling. Release grasp tightening stronger still. And then suddenly, I knew, I was pregnant. The weight of the news settled heavily on my chest, a relentless reminder of the reality I had to face. Each day became a battle against the tide of emotions threatening to drown me. The pregnancy was not just a physical condition, it was a storm brewing within, swirling around guilt, fear, and longing. I couldn't escape it, no matter how hard I tried. In the quiet moments of the evening, I found myself staring at the walls of my Victorian home, once filled with laughter and warmth. Now they echoed with silence, amplifying my turmoil. My husband was still away, serving his country while I wrestled with decisions that felt monumental and terrifying. The thought of him returning to find everything altered made my stomach churn. I reached out to Sarah, an old friend who had seen me through many trials. We met at our usual cafe, nestled in the heart of town where memories lingered like ghosts. As I sipped my coffee, her eyes searched mine for answers. "What's going on with you, Caroline?" she asked gently but firmly. I hesitated, words caught in my throat like thorns. "It's complicated," I finally managed. "Complicated how?" Her voice was steady, encouraging me to unravel the knot inside. "I'm pregnant," I confessed quietly. "And it's not my husband's." Her expression shifted from concern to shock, and then back again as she processed my revelation. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I feel trapped between two worlds, my loyalty to him and this connection with Matthew." "Do you love him?" She leaned in closer, her tone softening as if afraid of what I might say. "I don't know if it's love," I replied honestly. "But he understands me in ways that feel both comforting and dangerous." Sarah sighed deeply as she took a sip of her drink. "You need to think about what you truly want. This isn't just about you anymore." Her words lingered long after we parted ways that afternoon. The decision loomed over me like a dark cloud, heavy and oppressive. As days passed and my husband's return drew closer, anxiety twisted tighter around my heart. Then one evening, as dusk settled over the town like a soft blanket, there was a knock at the door that sent my pulse racing. It was him, my husband, home earlier than expected. "Surprise," he said with a smile that faded when he noticed the tension etched across my face. "Hi," I managed to say, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He stepped inside and enveloped me in his arms, a familiar embrace that felt both comforting and suffocating all at once. The scent of his cologne brought back memories of our early days together but also reminded me of everything that had changed since then. "How have you been?" he asked as we settled into our usual routine, a dance we both knew too well. Busy, I replied vaguely, avoiding his gaze as guilt washed over me anew. He nodded but didn't press further. Instead, he began sharing stories from his time away, tales of camaraderie and resilience among his fellow soldiers. Yet each word felt like another reminder of the life we once shared, a life now shadowed by secrets and unspoken truths. As night fell and we prepared for bed in our shared room, the air thick with unaddressed tension, I couldn't help but recall the moments spent with Matthew when everything felt so different yet so complicated. My mind wandered back to those stolen kisses amidst laughter and vulnerability. Now they seemed like ghosts haunting me from another life entirely. Lying beside my husband felt surreal as sleep evaded me entirely. Questions circled endlessly. What would happen if he found out? Could I continue living this double life? And more importantly, what did I truly want? The next morning brought clarity wrapped in uncertainty. Perhaps it was time for action rather than contemplation. If only it were that simple. As days turned into weeks following his return home, life resumed its rhythm yet remained tinged with an undercurrent of tension between us, a silent acknowledgement that something had shifted beneath the surface without either one daring to name it aloud. Then came an unexpected visit from Matthew one afternoon while my husband was out running errands, a moment fraught with urgency yet laced with apprehension as he stood on my doorstep looking more vulnerable than ever before. "Can we talk?" His voice trembled slightly as if unsure whether stepping into this space would bring solace or chaos. "Now isn't a good time," I whispered urgently, glancing around for any signs of interruption while battling conflicting emotions within myself, the pull towards him undeniable yet fraught with danger too great to ignore fully. "I need you," he insisted softly, stepping closer until our breaths mingled in the humid air surrounding us, a magnetic force drawing us together despite everything else threatening to tear us apart once more. "I can't do this," I replied firmly, though inside every fiber screamed otherwise. The longing surged through me like wildfire, threatening destruction if left unchecked any longer than necessary. But then reality crashed back down upon us both when footsteps echoed outside, signaling my husband's imminent return home from errands unannounced. A stark reminder that choices carried consequences far beyond mere moments shared between two hearts yearning for connection amidst chaos swirling all around them. "What are we doing?" Matthew asked, desperately searching for clarity amid confusion hanging thickly between us, now caught off guard by impending disruption looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts yearning, desperately seeking solace finally found. Despite fears clinging tight, unwilling release grasp tightening stronger still. "We need time apart," I said abruptly, breaking eye contact, unable bear weight pressing down upon shoulders already burdened too heavily by choices made without foresight or consideration for all lives intertwined within this tangled web spun tight around us both. But even as those words left my lips echoing hollowly against walls once filled, laughter now steeped silence. I couldn't shake feeling something irrevocable had shifted forevermore, altering paths ahead, filled uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts yearning, desperately seeking solace finally found despite fears clinging tight, unwilling release grasp tightening stronger still. And so there we stood, suspended between choice and consequence, two souls entwined by fate facing an uncertain future where shadows danced around every corner, whispering secrets long hidden beneath layers, guilt, shame, regret, all colliding head-on, creating chaos spiraling outward, threatening consume everything known until nothing remained untouched anymore, either way leading down paths uncharted ahead, filled uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts yearning, desperately seeking solace finally found despite fears clinging tight, unwilling release grasp tightening stronger still. The clinic was sterile, filled with the quiet hum of fluorescent lights and the distant murmur of voices behind closed doors. My heart raced as I stood in the waiting area, gripping the edge of my purse tightly. The decision I had made felt like a weight pressing down on my chest, each breath a reminder of the path I had chosen. I was here to reclaim control, to silence the chaos that had taken root in my life. But as I turned to look for a place to sit, my gaze collided with Matthew's. His presence felt like a jolt of electricity, pulling me into a whirlwind of emotions I thought I had tucked away. He stood there, eyes wide with surprise and confusion, mirroring the turmoil within me. The air thickened between us as we both processed the reality of our circumstances. "Caroline," he breathed, taking a step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" I opened my mouth to respond but found no words. The truth hung heavy in the air, my choice loomed larger than either of us could articulate. Instead, I glanced away, focusing on the stark white walls as if they could offer some comfort or clarity. "I didn't think," he hesitated, running a hand through his hair, a familiar gesture that once brought me solace now only deepened my internal conflict. "I didn't think you'd come." "What did you expect?" My voice came out sharper than intended, tinged with frustration and fear. "That I'd just ignore everything?" Matthew's expression shifted from surprise to concern as he took another tentative step closer. "I didn't mean it like that. I didn't know if you'd be ready." "Ready? Ready for what?" "To face this moment? To confront the reality of our choices?" My heart raced at the thought of all that lay ahead, the consequences that would ripple through our lives like stones cast into still water. "I'm not sure about any of this," I admitted finally, my voice cracking under the weight of honesty. He nodded slowly, understanding etched across his features. "Neither am I." His gaze dropped to the floor between us before returning to mine with renewed determination. "But we can figure it out together." The intimacy of his words sent shivers down my spine, an echo of all we had shared in stolen moments filled with laughter and longing. But now those memories felt tainted by guilt and uncertainty. "I'm not sure that's possible," I replied quietly, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Why are you doing this?" Matthew pressed gently but urgently, stepping closer still until we were almost touching. "You don't have to go through this alone." I shook my head vehemently. This was not about him or us, it was about me reclaiming control over my life amidst chaos and confusion. "I need to do this for myself," I said firmly, though doubt crept into my voice. His eyes searched mine for answers that weren't there. All he found was fear reflected back at him, fear mingled with desire and regret. "Caroline," he began again but faltered as an attendant called out from behind me. "Miss," she said gently but firmly. "It's time." The words struck like a thunderclap in an otherwise still sky. They shattered whatever fragile connection remained between us in that moment. "I have to go," I murmured helplessly. Matthew reached out instinctively as if trying to hold on to something precious slipping away from him, a lifeline in turbulent waters, but I stepped back instinctively. "Please don't," he urged softly, desperation creeping into his voice. "I can't." The finality echoed between us like a chasm opening wide beneath our feet. As I turned away from him toward the hallway leading deeper into uncertainty, every step felt heavier than the last, a physical manifestation of all that had transpired between us. Love mingled with betrayal intertwined within choices made in darkness now spilling into light. Inside those sterile walls awaited decisions that would alter everything. The echoes of whispered promises fading into silence replaced by stark reality looming large overhead casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts yearning desperately seeking solace finally found despite fears clinging tight unwilling release grasp, tightening stronger still. The door closed behind me with a soft click, an ending marking yet another beginning fraught with uncharted territory ahead filled uncertainty looming large overhead casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts yearning desperately seeking solace finally found despite fears clinging tight unwilling, release grasp tightening stronger still. In those moments before entering where choices would be laid bare before me, a world unfurling before my very eyes, I wondered if any part remained unbroken or if everything had changed irrevocably, leaving nothing untouched anymore, either way leading down paths uncharted ahead, filled uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts. Yearning, desperately seeking solace, finally found despite fears clinging tight, unwilling release, grasp tightening stronger still. And then it happened. An unexpected wave crashed over me. A rush of realization clawing at my insides, demanding attention while drowning out all rational thought. The knowledge that once crossed this threshold nothing could remain unchanged, forevermore altering paths ahead, filled uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts, yearning, desperately seeking solace, finally found despite fears clinging tight, unwilling release, grasp tightening stronger still. As they ushered me further down corridors lined with sterile white walls punctuated only by muted colors, each step echoing louder than before, I couldn't shake feeling something irrevocable had shifted, forevermore altering paths ahead, filled uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts, yearning, desperately seeking solace, finally found despite fears clinging tight, unwilling release, grasp tightening stronger still. And so there we stood, suspended between choice and consequence, two souls entwined by fate, facing an uncertain future where shadows danced around every corner, whispering secrets long hidden beneath layers, guilt, shame, regret, all colliding head-on, creating chaos spiraling outward, threatening consume everything known until nothing remained untouched anymore, either way leading down paths uncharted ahead, filled uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows dark enough hide truths buried deep within hearts, yearning, desperately seeking solace, finally found despite fears clinging tight, unwilling release, grasp tightening stronger still. The door opened before me, a cold reminder of what lay beyond, and as they beckoned me inside one last time, I took a breath, steadying myself against waves crashing relentlessly against shores long forgotten.